Howdy there, partner. Welcome back to the Ridge. I bet you're here for the full story, right? Nah. Can't let those power tools commingle with the hand tools. Don't worry, it'll all make sense later. Just sit on down and let me tell the tale. The story starts in the town of North Ridgeville, Ohio, with a man named William Thewes. William was born in 1883 in Cleveland and had previously invented a carburetor for the R&S Valve Company in 1921. In 1922, he set out to create an improved pipe wrench design. At this point in time, the Stillson pattern pipe wrench had become the standard pipe wrench used in America, but Thewes thought he could improve it by reducing the parts count to create an even stronger wrench. Thewes' design did away with the pivoting head mechanism, which had to be machined out of a separate forged piece. He also substituted a cast lower handle, which used a forged replaceable jaw insert. The upper jaw and nut are taken direct from the Stillson design, but the upper jaw now pivots in a pocket cast into the lower handle. An internal flat return spring kept tension on the pipe when in use. The wrench design would be refined in 1923 by switching to a coil-style return spring, and the wrench we know today came out in 28 when a little hump was added to the back to hold the nut and keep the jaw from sliding back down. To produce his invention, William and his wife Barbara founded the Ridge Tool Company in 1923 along with another man, Carl Ingwer, who would become the company president. Eventually, they moved down the road to the town of Elyria, Ohio, into the former Garford automobile factory. The wrenches would be sold under the RIDGID brand, but convincing consumers to switch to a new style of pipe wrench was not an easy task. To entice consumers, RIDGID branded their wrenches as being more heavy-duty than the Stillson, offering an unconditional guarantee where if the wrench body broke, they would replace it, no questions asked. RIDGID had another marketing breakthrough in 1935 when they released their first calendar. Initially featuring artwork by pinup artists George Petty and Frank Diamario, the calendars depicted women in sometimes unusual poses alongside RIDGID products. These calendars would grace the walls of workshops, hardware stores, and garages all across the country, making many a man rigid over rigid tools. The calendars would change going into the 1960s, using stylized photographs of real models instead of drawings. By the 1970s, they had switched entirely to photos of models, many taken by photographer Peter Gowland. These are nice, but it's just not the same as the earlier artwork style. The last calendar produced was for the year 2017, which did not feature any female models at all. The artwork was done by tattoo and comic book artists. While the artwork is cool, it's still just not the same, and they haven't produced a calendar since. Don't worry, there's links to a ton of the old calendars in the video description. Getting back to our original story, William Thewes had set out to dethrone Stillson as America's pipe wrench, and other companies soon followed suit. In 1930, Alphonse Brungart invented a pipe wrench design that looks awful similar to the RIDGID design. This design would be sold by the Walworth Company, the company that owned the original Stillson patents. Not to be outdone, in 1937, Thewes invented a copy of the Stillson wrench. Dubbed the Improved Stillson, it featured internal return springs compared to the external springs on the original Stillson. RIDGID also made other products for the plumbing industry, including pipe cutters and pipe vices, and they introduced their first electric pipe threader in 1948. They would also dabble in hand tools, including the Ritco brand, which was their economy line. In 1963, RIDGID purchased Supreme Products of Chicago, Illinois, a manufacturer of drill chucks. and in '64 they acquired the vice division of the Desmond Stephan Company, adding Simplex brand vices to their lineup. In 1966, RIDGID would get bought out by Emerson Electric, one of the largest manufacturers of electric motors in the U.S. This acquisition allowed RIDGID to expand their product line to include power tools. 1969 brought out the first aluminum-handled pipe wrench, which was 40% lighter than an iron wrench and still retained the same unconditional guarantee. And in 1974, RIDGID acquired the Urich Foundry in Erie, Pennsylvania. Things were going great for RIDGID under Emerson rule until 1979. This was the year that Emerson sought to buy out Skill, the skill saw company. But the Federal Trade Commission got involved, suing Emerson over violations of the Clayton Antitrust Act, basically saying that if Emerson bought Skill, they would be creating a monopoly in the electric power tools market. In February of 1980, the FTC and Emerson reached a settlement where Emerson would be allowed to purchase Skill if they sold off the RIDGID power tool line and agree to not add any additional power tool lines for a period of 10 years. So RIDGID was broke up, the pipe wrench and plumbing tool line staying under Emerson, and the electric power tool division being sold to Elyria and Company, a California company that made electric lawn and garden tools for Sears. I don't know, this is another weird case. In all of the other stories in this series, the company gets bought out by a huge conglomerate, and nobody in the federal government cares. But when Emerson buys Skill, they lose their minds. Maybe Emerson forgot to make a donation to the appropriate congressman's campaign or something. Even though the prohibition on additional power tool lines only lasted 10 years, it wasn't until 1996 that Emerson re-registered the RIDGID trademark for use on power tools, and 1998 when they brought out the RIDGID shop vacuums. It was 2003 when they made a licensing agreement with TTi and Home Depot to sell the RIDGID brand power tools that we know today. This new iteration of RIDGID power tools are made entirely by TTi in China, with the RIDGID brand name being licensed to them. TTi is the same company that makes tools for Milwaukee, Ryobi, and Walmart's Hart brand. Today, the RIDGID pipe wrenches and plumbing tools are still made in their original Elyria, Ohio plant, and this is a huge plant. There's like over a dozen buildings all squished together. They even have their own water tower. And check out this cool brick skywalk that connects these two buildings together. Anyway, there's a pretty cool mechanical hub video out there where they do a tour of the inside of the plant and show how the wrenches are made. I will also put a link to this in the video description. And that gets us caught up with the history of RIDGID tools. Be sure you're subscribed for the next tool or episode. Thanks everyone for watching. See you later. Bye.